All right, I think we're live. Hopefully you can hear me and you can see me. And thank you for joining this live stream. My name is Kayla Cox. I am the owner of this here channel, 6 Miles to Supper. The reason it's called 6 Miles to Supper is that pretty much sums up how I lost 80 pounds was practicing intermittent fasting 6 days a week and walking 6 miles a day. Now there were some variations there along the way. Obviously, most people's weight loss journeys are, you're kind of figuring things out as you go along, and mine was no different. So if you have questions about the weight loss journey, intermittent fasting, walking, just weight loss in general, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have based on my own experience. I'm just one person. I'm just a regular person. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist. I'm just somebody who's been there, done that, and got the t-shirt when it comes to weight loss. I struggled with weight loss my entire life, really, or with my weight, I would say. My entire life. I was usually chunky as a kid, and just kind of always was either on a diet and kind of miserable, or overweight and miserable. So yeah. Thank you, Alina, for being here. You're in St. Pete. I'm in Central Florida, so nice weather we're having, right? I assume yours is very similar to mine. And thanks also for being an insider. Thank you to all the insiders out there. Insiders get access to a vlog I do here on this channel, and also the Discord server. It's a private Discord server, and so you get access to that if you're a supporter of this channel. And if you'd like to be a supporter of this channel, you can click the join button below. And it's like $4.99 a month, I think. So yeah. Oh, and I also do a members only live stream every week also. So yeah. If you have questions about anything, you can just leave those in the chat. And I have a few questions that I've kind of gathered up from people who have left comments on various videos. I don't generally look in the comment section on YouTube. I do look at it here in the chat on live streams and stuff, but just for my own personal mental health, I found that I couldn't take the negativity that is sometimes found in the comment section over the course of time. I used to answer, like I looked and read and answered every single comment, but as the channel grew, and it became one of those things that I just couldn't do. So let's see here. Oh, I almost spilled. Let's see. Beverly Shiarla says, I feel like the last couple of weeks I've been all over the map on my hours. I thought the other day I'd do 7 hours, but in my mind I want to do OMAD. Yeah, so, and she's talking about a 7-hour fasting. Sorry, a 7-hour eating window. Generally, for anyone who's really new to intermittent fasting, the longer number is generally the fasting window, and the shorter number is the eating window. So like a 24 would mean 20 hours of fasting, 4-hour eating window. But Beverly, I feel like I've been all over the map too, as far as like just my days, my schedule of my days. We'll get to the end of the week and I'll think, wow, like this was a fast week. It's been so many different things, different things going on with our schedule, like, oh, we're going to go look at Christmas lights, or, oh, we've got this thing going on, or shopping, or whatever. So, the holidays are just kind of a crazy time. You do the best you can in it, especially with intermittent fasting, and if you're trying to be kind of on a schedule. But the thing is, people get in the way of that, your life kind of gets in the way of that. And that's why I always say, I think it's the best way to approach intermittent fasting is to try to fit it into your life instead of the other way around. So don't try to like, I've got to fit my life into this really rigid fasting regimen. Instead, just figure out, how can this work in my life? Because your schedule, for some of us, our schedule stays the same most of the time. Like usually my schedule is very, very bare, and I try to keep it that way on purpose. Like we go to church, but I don't go to a lot of like social events, like not a lot of parties. I'm an introvert, so I don't often go out, and don't often have people over. So like my days can be pretty, pretty regimented, and I like it that way. But but if you're more social, that's something to really take into consideration when you're forming your plan, you're writing it out. You need to think about, like, how is this actually going to work realistically, and being flexible. You can be very flexible with this. I'm very flexible with intermittent fasting. I have been also through the whole thing. That's why I wrote this book called The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting, because you can practice it in a very laid back way and you can still get results. So, and this season is drawing to a close, in a couple of weeks. It's already the 22nd right now. So basically in 9 or 10 days, things are going to be basically back to normal for everybody. And so, just, remember that this too shall pass. So, let's see. Shooting Star says, hi team, do you do a one-on-one session as well and guide people as you need to? I think they meant they need to lose 40 pounds and I don't know where to start. Okay, so I do offer one-on-one coaching. You can go to 6milestosupper.com/course, and that shows you the prices for one-on-one coaching. Also though, on these live streams, you can get, free help. That's why I do these, because I know not everybody's budget allows for, one-on-one private coaching prices. And I also do, another option you might be interested in is joining this channel. Like I said, it's $4.99 a month, and I do an additional live stream, so you can get help there. You can ask questions there, and on the Discord server, you can ask questions there. I do office hours also each week on the Discord, so that's a chance for you to come in. We can either chat, on just text on the office hours channel, or you can be on camera. It's not private, but it is an opportunity for you to get, that kind of help, So, so those are the things that I offer. I also have a course, about intermittent fasting, and if you want to take that, then that's another kind of option where you could, ask specific questions as you go along and work your way through. That's why I wrote the books too. Some people prefer kind of just like give me a book about it, and that would help you. I also have an intermittent fasting workbook, which is available at 6milestosupper.com/workbook, and that takes you through the entire process, step by step, of weight loss with intermittent fasting. But if you're just, because one thing she did say, was, do you need to count calories with fasting? And so you don't have to. I don't. I find calorie counting very tedious and I resent it. I've done it before. Actually in 2015, I was really trying to lose a lot of weight. I needed, in my mind, I needed to lose like 80 pounds. And so I was thinking, okay, I when I was actually practicing intermittent fasting consistently, I was losing about 1 pound a week, but that to me was failure. I thought it was too slow. I thought you're not doing enough, and so I thought, okay, I'm going to count calories, and that'll like speed up the weight loss. So I made a lot of mistakes in the way I counted calories. For one thing, I got very obsessive with it, and I got very stressed out about it. But also I was using my Fitbit to tell me how many calories I should be eating. So I think a couple of things were going on. I think I was kind of overestimating the amount of calories I really needed. And I was just approaching it in kind of this, kind of maybe more obsessive kind of a way. So I think for one thing, it kind of depends on your own personality. Some people love counting calories. They feel very empowered by it. And if that's you, I say go for it. But what I found is that you can lose weight without counting calories, just by really paying attention to, number one, what is the scale doing? And number two, how are you feeling? And kind of just continuing to calibrate how much food you need, like paying attention to how full do you feel after a meal. If you feel overly full, you probably ate too many calories. Same with like if you're feeling really, really hungry by, like say like you have your last meal at say 6 o'clock, but then by the time you're trying to go to sleep, you're like too hungry, like you can't even sleep because you're just feeling that hungry. You probably didn't eat enough calories that day. So it's like this, it's kind of like guessing and checking and guessing and checking, but I prefer that to like counting calories. If you have no real awareness of how many calories are in things though, it could help you to just kind of learn about how many calories are in things. The reason I say that is one struggle I see a lot of people having is they are convinced that they're like eating the right amount of calories, but really, but they're gaining weight, and it's like you're eating too much. I mean, if you're gaining weight, you're eating too much, and so so that can be a difficult concept. Like if you just don't know, like you've never paid attention. Like my husband, he's always been a skinny guy, and I remember like this has been years ago now, but I remembered when I realized like he had no idea like what a calorie was, how many calories were in things. He just always just ate. Like he just ate however much he wanted, and then he was done with it. And it was like so bizarre to me, like that people could do that. Like people could just function in life without like thinking about those things, and he was at a great weight. So it was like it was one of those things that made me think about things, so I think you can train yourself to do it without counting calories. But if you ever find yourself just really, really struggling, like you feel like I'm not eating too much food, but yet you're gaining weight or you're not losing weight, chances are you probably need to kind of recalibrate your understanding of how many calories are in things, because it adds up so fast, like so fast. Like a while back I did a video where I showed like 1,500 calories like one fast food meal, right? And it's super easy. Like it adds up. It just adds up so quickly. And you would think like, oh, that's that I could eat 3 meals like that a day. It's like if you do that, you're going to be gaining weight like pretty aggressively. So those are the things just to kind of think about when it comes to counting calories versus not. As far as just getting started, because I think that's what you said. Where to just get started with fasting. I would say, and this is just based on my own journey. Here's what helped me. Number 1, weigh yourself every day. Start doing that right now. Even if you're not really good at fasting yet, just go ahead and start weighing every day and start averaging your numbers. So I focus on the 7-day average, but not even just the 7-day average. I watch how my 7-day average trends over 6 weeks of time. And the reason that's helpful is because water weight fluctuates, okay? Like your weight, if you've not been weighing every day, your weight is going to go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And if you don't already know that about yourself, it's going to freak you out if one day, like you get on the scale and you're like, okay, I lost a pound, but then the next day you're up 2 pounds. You're going to think, what did I do wrong yesterday? But that's not how it works. Your weight is really more like an average. So if you just keep weighing daily and then keeping track of your 7-day average, for one, then you're in the habit of weighing. You always know what your weight's doing. And if you can train yourself to just not like really think about that number, just focus on the trend over time, then that can really give you a lot of freedom. What happens to a lot of people is like they'll eat, let's say they eat Chinese food one night and they go like their weight goes up like by 5 or 6 pounds overnight, and they think, oh no, Chinese food makes me gain a bunch of weight. Well, it's just water weight. It'll go away like over the course of 2 or 3 days. So maybe 3 or 4, depending on how you retain water. That's a very individual kind of thing. So that's the first thing I would do. Just start weighing yourself every day, because it holds you accountable. That's the thing. It's not about obsessing about the number. It's not about like pinning all your hopes and dreams or all your self-worth on that number. That's not what it's. None of your self-worth is on that number. It's just to hold yourself accountable. Like, here's where I'm at and I'm trying to get over here, right? So am I making progress? And so that's the first thing. The next thing is look at intermittent fasting as a practice, meaning you're probably going to be bad at it at first, but you'll get better over time. And I recommend starting out with a very, very short window, something you can definitely stick to, because you want it to be you want to have a victory every day. You don't want this to be like, I've got to fast for 20 hours, or I've got to practice OMAD, or and then you're failing to get there. That's what happens to a lot of people. They're like, I need to do OMAD, and then they'll try it, and maybe for the first couple of days they do it, but then over time they just can't seem to like stick with it. Better, I think, and this is really how I did it. I approached it as, okay, I don't really know how to do this, so I'm gonna my first boundary with food, time boundary of food was like, I'm not gonna eat past 10 p.m. and I'm not gonna eat breakfast before 6 a.m. That's an 8-hour fasting window, which I slept through, okay? And yet that was like this first little baby step towards, okay, now I'm going to push breakfast out just a little bit further. And I would just wait until I felt ready to push it out a little bit more. I was trying to just be consistent. And then over time, the weight loss started to happen. And so just go really slowly with it. Focus on consistency and work on eating the right amount of food. Don't just assume that a longer fasting window will give you faster results, or that it will be better for your life. Pay really close attention to how you are feeling. If you're feeling good, you've got good energy, and the scale's starting to just move down, then keep doing that. Just whatever you're doing, keep doing that. And enjoy yourself. Like, really focus on enjoying the journey, because this is all about permanent lifestyle change. And so don't do something that you don't think you can stick with over the long haul. Don't ever make a plan where it's like, oh, this is really hard, but it'll help me get the weight off. It's about permanent lifestyle change. So just keep those things in mind as you go along. Don't pay attention to what other people are doing and what other people are saying. Focus on yourself and how you're feeling and your own results. Okay. That's where I would say to start. Is that enough? That was a long-winded answer. I hope that helps you. Jackie or Jacques? Let's see. Steven says, when is your new book coming out on audio? That's a great question. I had really good intentions to get that done this month. But a thing about me is sometimes I think I can do a lot more in a shorter amount of time than I actually can. So I have not yet recorded it. And I can tell you right now, one big thing that has been like in the back of my mind, like, why have I not even started on that project, is I don't really know the settings. I need to ask my husband about, like, to make sure I get the settings right on the microphone, so that when I go to edit it, it will be right, because Audible is really ticky about things. So I don't want to just like start recording and then end up it being wrong. So note to self, I need to just ask my husband so that he can get me on the right track, and then I can get it recorded. But I'll be working on that. They're referring to this book, The Laid Back Guide to Weight Loss Maintenance, which is a book I released this past year as a part of my, I took a break basically from YouTube, except for, I would do the members only stuff, and these lives, but I took a break from like the topical videos, and I focused on just finishing that book, finishing the workbook, and trying to get that all, straightened out and ready. So, but I did not record. I probably should have taken that time also to record the audiobook, but recording the audiobook, it's a pretty big job. So yeah. All those books are available on Amazon, by the way. And I should say, if you're a Smashwords user, all of my books are on 50% off right now. I'm going to put that link in there. You can see all the different ones. So, and there is only the ebooks. I don't have any kind of like print versions on Smashwords, but they're on 50% off right now until January 1st. So, if you like that site, you can get my books there half off. So yeah, okay. Beverly says, the problem with me is if I don't do the same thing every day but Saturday, I just start getting hungry at different times, and I just want to make it the same time every day. Yeah, and one thing is too, with that, I'm very much the same way. Like, my body it expects food. Like whatever time I ate yesterday, that's when it's going to signal me to like eat the next day. I started to really learn this when I finally got consistent with fasting, and I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on being consistent. And I started, and like in 2016, I got very clear on my plan. Said, okay, Sunday I'm going to take the day off completely, so no fasting at all on Sundays. I can just eat whatever, whenever. And we would always have pancake breakfast on Sunday mornings back then. And so I would, I started to notice that on Monday, whatever time I ate on Sunday, I would be hungry on Monday. So like if we had pancake breakfast at 9 o'clock in the morning, then 9 o'clock on Monday, I'd be like, I am so hungry right now. So and that taught me something about hunger. So hunger is a really funny thing. And this is something that just kind of like really, it was the first time I ever learned this when I started practicing intermittent fasting. Hunger is not always hunger, but it can really feel like hunger, but it's not really hunger. So there are several different things that kind of masquerade as hunger. One of them is habit hunger, or at least I call it habit hunger. And that's what I mean when it's like that you ate yesterday at this certain time and today you're feeling hungry at that same time. It's just like your body's way of saying, hey, you remember yesterday we ate at that time, like let's do that again. So, and that you can really safely ignore. Now this gets tricky. I just want to say that up front, because the weight loss journey, I feel a big part of it, a really important part of it, something that will make it sustainable, is to learn how to listen to your body and to take really good care of yourself. So you don't want to punish yourself. You don't want yourself to be miserable and that kind of thing. But there is hunger that you can safely ignore. Okay, so habit hunger would be one of those things. So like if you're, if it's 9 o'clock and you're like, oh yeah, yesterday at 9 o'clock I ate, and so that's why I'm feeling hungry, you can just ignore that signal and you can go do something else. And the thing that I find the best tactic, tip, trick, whatever, to deal with habit hunger is to go get busy doing something else. So, and I would say make it something really enjoyable, by the way. Like there might be this temptation that you feel to like, oh, well, I've got to do something really like important or useful, or like I've got to go clean house. Instead, I would say like when you're first really trying to get consistent, do something super enjoyable that you're going to be able to convince yourself to go do it instead of eat. So like if you've got a book that you're reading that you're really enjoying, read a book. Or if you want to watch a movie, like let yourself do whatever it is that would convince you not to eat, basically. Watching a movie may not be a great idea if you're very prone to snacking, and if you've got like that habit tied to a movie, then that won't be a good idea. But go for a walk, or like if you like to draw or paint, or if you have some sort of other kind of hobby, do that, and keep yourself busy. Another type of hunger that can happen too is stress, or just emotional eating. Okay, so this I didn't understand about myself either when I was on the weight loss journey. I never would have considered myself an emotional eater. Like I heard Oprah talking about it one time. I was like, I don't feel like I do that very often, But man, once I started practicing intermittent fasting and was being consistent, so in other words, not breaking the fast early, just like, nope, I'm not going to break the fast early, I'm going to be consistent. Then I started to really learn how often I was eating because I was stressed. And so like by this time I had gotten like good at intermittent fasting, meaning like most of the time, when I'm in my fasting window, I'm really not feeling hungry. But what would happen is sometimes I would like be in my fasting window and I would just find myself standing in front of the pantry and I would think, why am I I'm looking for a snack, and I'm thinking, okay, like I don't do this, like I'm not going to eat right now. So what's going on? Like, and it showed me I had this habit of like, when something would happen, I would go and just grab a snack. So I had to start investigating, my own life. Like, okay, why am I here looking for a snack? Like what just happened? Like what's the thing that just happened? And sometimes that might be something I was just thinking about, right? Like I'm just thinking about a thing. So what was it that I was thinking about? And sometimes that's hard because, I mean, if your mind is like mine, like it kind of can like go all over the place. And so I'd have to kind of backtrack, like what was I just thinking about? And so many times it was like, you know, money, like money worries, or just worries in general, like think, you know, the health things, or, you know, the kids, or like, oh, like I kind of yelled at the kid, and I was just being impatient, or, you know, or they're acting out. Why are they acting out? You know, and so realizing that it's like tied, like those things were tightly coupled. If I'm upset, then I want to eat. So then learning, like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ignore the hunger signal, right? Like it's not real hunger. It's fake hunger. It's stress. Or it's boredom. That's another one. Big one is boredom. Resistance to being creative also. So art, like if you like to do art, but you find yourself not making art, it can be because it's resistance. And so you go eat instead of doing your art or your writing or whatever it is. So you can, but you again can safely ignore that. Like you don't have to keep, you don't have to listen to that signal. Okay, so hunger. Yeah, the last one. Well, also be aware. If you are a woman, then your cycle is going to make you feel hungrier too. And what you do about that particular hunger, I say, is up to the individual woman. I've spoken to some women who are like, they'll increase their windows during that time. Like, in other words, they'll have a longer eating window. Some prefer to just stick. I pretty much just stuck with what I was doing, but I would allow myself emergency chocolate, which happened because my husband, very sweetly, one time, he noticed like my mood I was just in a really bad mood. And he was like, here, eat this Snickers. And I was like, you know, in that moment, I was like, you know, is this like sabotage on my weight loss journey? What should I do? And luckily, I was thinking, you know, like, I want this to be sustainable. Like, I want my weight loss journey to mirror what maintenance will look like for me. Like, I don't want it to be different. Like, I had always done it differently. I had always been like, when I'm losing weight, I'm acting one way, but then when I'm down at my goal weight, I'm acting a totally different way. And I started to think, no, like, I really need it to be the same. So like, whatever I'm doing in weight loss mode, I need to be able to do that in maintenance, and vice versa. So I was like, you know, like, in this particular situation, I want to be able to have that candy bar, you know? And so I just took it, and I allowed myself to have emergency chocolate whenever I needed it. So yeah, so those are the 3 types of hunger, and different ways to deal with it. Now, what about true hunger? So, and I feel like I'm, let's see. Yeah, we're talking about hunger from Beverly's question. So, true hunger is like relentless. Like, it doesn't just go away. You're gonna hear your stomach growling. A lot of people get like nauseous. Like if it goes too far, you start to get nauseous. You start to get headaches. It's really uncomfortable, and it doesn't just disappear. So those are some ways to kind of like discern. Can you safely ignore that hunger cue, or do you really need to pay attention to it? And if you're feeling like true hunger and you're starting to feel miserable, you really need to pay attention to that, and you need to increase the food intake a little bit. Like, it's difficult, right? Because it's the fine line there between you're going to be eating you know, too much, so then you're gaining weight, or you're eating just enough, so you're maintaining, or you're eating just little enough so that you're losing weight at a good pace, like a pound a week. But it's not so little food that you're going to feel miserable. You know, like, you want to feel a little bit like, I tried to hit it where I was feeling good and hungry by the time the window opened up. So I didn't really want to feel full, you know, when it was time to eat. Like, I wanted to feel hungry whenever I ate, but not so hungry though that I was like out of control. You know what I mean? So, and again, that takes trial and error and patience with yourself, patience with the process. things that I was not good at at first. I tend not to be a very patient person. I have gotten more patient over time, and that has been, I think, in large part because of the weight loss journey, like learning these things, that it's like, it's a long, and it really never ends. Like once you get down to your goal weight, maintenance is for the rest of your life. So learning how to be patient is helpful. Yeah, so Beverly says the thing is, if she eats more than one meal a day, like she'll overeat through the day, because once I start eating, she overeats. Yeah, and again, look at trying to, just try to improve a little bit each day, like 1% better. Like I love that. I love that little metric. Like try to do 1% better, even with your overeating. Like try to eat like 1% less, than you did. Like, so stop at one, like even if you're like overeating, try to stop at one bite less. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds like, oh, that's not enough. But if you consistently practice that over time, you will like make major changes. Like when I look back on my weight loss journey, a lot of this was tiny little changes that I made. And over time, it added up to bigger results. But, but at the time, it can feel like, oh, that's not enough. But again, sustainable, permanent lifestyle change. That's really what the game's all about. So it's Jackie. Sorry for calling you Jacques. We were just being fancy today. Beverly asked a good question. How do you know when you're ready to extend your hours? Okay. You're ready to extend your hours when your current fasting window feels effortless, where it's like, yeah, I can do that. Like there's no question. Like you can do it. And it doesn't feel like a challenge. You're not watching the clock. You have learned how to fill up the fasting window with things so that it just doesn't feel hard. That you don't feel like, oh, this is like this. I can't do this. And being really consistent with your current window, and I, like one thing I realize is I don't really often, or maybe I've never defined that. Like, what do I mean by consistent? Like, I would say if the current window that you're doing, if you can do it for a week or two, probably 2 weeks, consistently, meaning you don't break early, and it doesn't feel hard, then you're definitely ready to go on to a slightly longer window. But like when I say push out your window, I'm talking, like for some people that might be 5 minutes, it might be 15 minutes. And jumping longer than that can be pretty difficult. Like I remember those days where it was like the idea of going an hour more, that was a bridge too far for me. I was like, well, I can do 15 minutes more, and that's doable. So focus on those things that are doable. Don't worry about like big jumps, because if you focus on just small progress that you can stay with consistently, you're going to stay encouraged, and you're going to because you're going to be consistent. There's some real magic that happens when you're being consistent with the plan that you have set out for yourself. And there is some real detrimental things that can happen when you are not being consistent with that plan that you've set out for yourself. Like a lot of like negative thinking can come in if you feel like you're failing. Even though you're not, it's just there's some sort of like psychological thing that happens that's good when you just set like attainable goals that you can jump over, and then you can jump over, and it's like little hurdles. Like, okay, I can jump over that. Okay, now I'm ready for this one. But if you're not able to jump over that hurdle, it can like mess with you psychologically, and you don't want that. Is like weight loss is a lot about mindset. A lot of it is mindset. I mean, there are practical things too, but the mindset is the thing that will either make you keep going or make you quit, depending on which mindset you choose. Also, if you've never read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, I highly recommend it. I don't know if I've got a link to that, but it's a really, really good book. I don't think I do. Well, anyway, you can find it on Amazon. Carol Dweck, Mindset, really good. Kim, you're walking your 6 miles. Excellent. Glad to accompany you. Jackie, I'm 5'6", I lost about 18 pounds in the last 3 months. Fantastic. And I'm almost under 200 pounds. That is awesome. No one has really noticed yet, and I haven't expected them to. Yeah, that I made a whole video about that. I think I've made it twice now, about how nobody notices your weight loss. I remember being in exactly your place. I'm 5'6", okay, so we're the same height. I remember being like hovering right around 200. Nobody was saying a word about my weight, and I was just like, come on. Like, I really thought, and this is so funny, so sad, really, I thought people were purposefully withholding their congratulations, or not telling me like, hey, you've lost weight, because they were wanting me to lose more weight. That's how my mind used to work. Like, the reason why nobody was saying anything is because they couldn't tell. Like, now when I go back and I look at the pictures of myself, I really couldn't tell a difference between like when I was at 222 and down to like around 200. It was like, oh, and actually I was going to show you guys this picture, because sometimes I don't show pictures and stuff, but this is a picture of me when it was December of 2015, and so that's me at around probably 205, around 205, maybe 207. I'd have to look at my records and see, but so that year, 2015, was like a rough year, or at least by the end of that year, I was ready to give up. So it was Christmas time. And I remember just being so frustrated when I look back, because I've had enough moment in March of 2014. And then by in February of 2015, I finally went to the gym and got on the scale and weighed myself for the first time. And I thought I was going to see 185. Like, that was the maximum number I thought I might see. And instead it was 222.2 pounds. So I was really upset that day. But I was like, okay, this year I mean, really, I thought I'm going to be done with this in like three months. Like, that was my mindset at the time. I was like, I got to lose 5 pounds a week, and I'll drop this weight and I'll be done with it. And that is just so not how it happened. I lost like 20 pounds, and then I hurt my back, and the weight started creeping back up. And I was all over the place. I kept quitting on things. I would do stuff for a while, and then I would just quit, and then be like, oh, I got to do something different. I got to like add macros in, or I got to count calories, like I was talking about earlier. And it was just like, I was just doing stuff constantly, and quitting constantly. And that was the problem. I just was not being consistent. But I remember being in December and like on that point of like being really frustrated. It's like, I have been killing myself at the gym. I've been trying so hard. Like, I felt like I was just trying so hard, and I was just so disheartened. And so I sat down and I looked at my spreadsheet, which I had kept like, it was like a weekly spreadsheet that I did, where I would note my weight, different measurements, and then also what I was doing that week. And when I read over that year, I was like, I'm like quitting all the time. Like, I'm switching up what I'm doing. And what I saw was, when I was actually being consistent with intermittent fasting, it was like a pound a week. And I was like, if I had just stuck with intermittent fasting, like if I had just stuck with that, I would be down 50 pounds this year instead of 15, and so January of 2016, I wrote down a very simple plan, which was intermittent fasting 6 days a week, walk 6 miles a day, take a cheat day on Sunday, and have coffee with half and half in it whenever I want during the fasting window. And I'm just going to stick to that. And once I did that, it just came off a pound a week on average. Some weeks no weight was lost, right? And some weeks a little bit more than a pound was lost, but on average, a pound a week. So yeah. So Jackie says she's an introvert. I guess I could get rid of this picture. She's an introvert. Me too. We're like the same person. I'm kind of nervous about people starting to notice and bringing it up, even with my friends and family. I've tried and failed before, and yes, I was so there. And feel like there's more and more pressure if people know, you feel like there's more pressure if people know that you're losing weight and they start adding their opinions to what I'm doing. So how did you handle curious people, family and friends, and also people who you might not actually be close to? Okay, that is like Yes, to all of that. Like, that is exactly how I was feeling. I remember, like, that fear of losing the weight only to regain it, and the humiliation that I would feel from that was something that kept me from even trying to lose weight in the first place. And because I was like, I just don't want to do it again. Like, I don't want, because I had done it so many times before, like my whole life. I was just like, I would lose the weight and I'd be down at a good weight. And then what would happen? I would gain the weight and I felt so embarrassed. And it was like, and you know, when you're an introvert, you don't want that attention, right? So, okay, so how did I, like, when people started bringing it up, okay, so here was one thing that was really helpful. I made a decision to not say a word about it. So I thought, no matter what's going on, no matter how frustrated I am with this whole process, I'm not going to bring it up to people, because I knew that would bring on advice. Okay, I didn't want advice. I wanted to take care of this problem. I was like, I'm going to solve this, and so that was the first thing. I thought, I'm keeping it to myself. So I'm not inviting other people on this journey. You know, like I'm doing it. Even my husband didn't know, which in hindsight, that was maybe the one place where I probably should have been more open, and stuff like that. But at the time I was just embarrassed. And he, like I said before, he's never had a weight problem. Like, so I thought he couldn't relate. Although, as over the course of like doing this channel, we started to realize, like, actually he has the problem only in reverse. Like, whereas women are expected to be like this certain weight, and it's like bad if you're above this certain weight. That's the societal pressure from it. Men are like kind of supposed to be bigger and burly and tall and all this stuff. And he's, you know, he's like my height, and he's, you know, 130 or 120s to 130s. And so he's got the opposite problem. So we could actually probably relate to each other a little bit better than what we thought. He's in the chat. He doesn't want to be a man boy. So that was like, in hindsight, that's maybe the one person that I probably should have opened up to. And you kind of have to use discernment there. I know everybody's marital situations may be different, and that kind of a thing. So, but I have a wonderful husband, and I should have like thought about that. Like, he's going to be very supportive. But, so that is, that's one thing. Okay. So, so there's more pressure when people know about it. And there absolutely is. That's why I kept my mouth shut. I was like, I'm not going to say anything. And like I said, like I was surprised to find that I was like getting mad that people weren't noticing. But then I did realize, I was like, but the thing is, as soon as somebody congratulates me for like losing weight, like for noticing, that's gonna kind of sting a little bit, because then that means they did notice that I had gained weight, you know, and so it was like just kind of a thing, you know. So it is kind of nice that you have that period of time where you're figuring things out and people aren't really noticing yet. You can start to build some confidence there, because probably the first 20 to 25, maybe even 30 pounds, depending on how you carry weight too. It might even be more than that. People may not be noticing, or, you know, you have to remember, people are not like comparing your before and after picture. Like, they're not doing that. Like, you're in front of them. And so the changes are happening so gradually that people probably aren't really going to notice. The exception would be like people who don't see you very often, you know, and if you like, they see you at one point and then the next time they see you're down 20 pounds, they might notice. So just kind of know that. But yeah, when people actually start, you know, giving you advice, or saying things, or they give you opinions, because I have dealt with some of that before. And I would say, I like to say that's really interesting. And then just, you know, like basically just ignore it. You know, if it's something where I know from experience that it's like not going to work for me, you know, various recommendations. Oh, you know what you should do? You should do keto because, you know, fill in the blank. You know, you could really lose weight. Man, you could like lose weight a lot faster. And I've had people, it's so funny to me. It's like on this channel, like I've had people give me that advice. You should have done keto. You would have lost the weight a lot faster. It's like, no, because I've done low carb before, and I know what I do. Like, I'll restrict and be like crazy about it, and then I will like break, and then it's like, whoo, it's not pretty. Whenever I start to feel too restricted on any plan, I mean, I'll be fine for a while, but then eventually I fall off the wagon, and I fall off the wagon in a big way. That I tend to do things like that. Like, whatever I do it bigger. So yeah, so that's another thing. And Jackie, you write fantasy books. We are the same person, except for you don't drink coffee. So then we're not alike at all. No, that is really interesting. And as far as curious people, so you have like, some people are going to give you bad advice, and you can just ignore that. And I think it's nice to just kind of smile and nod and say, that's really interesting. You don't have to say that's good advice. I mean, because that's a lie, right? You don't want to lie to people. But there are ways to just diplomatically be like, oh, interesting. Which, hat tip to my priest. That's such a good tip. Like, that's very interesting, because it's kind of like this non-committal way to kind of get through a conversation without causing an argument. But because what I have found, I will say this, people get almost religious in how they talk about diet things. Like, they really, like, depending on the person, it's almost like it has taken the place of religion for them. And so, that's just another thing. Like, when you're trying to, just tell people what you're doing. That's why I generally don't. Like, if somebody asks me for advice, then I will offer it. Specific advice, I'll try to, say, well, here is what I did, or here's what worked for me. But I have found unsolicited advice, and I'll see people sometimes where they're, they're struggling, but they don't want help. And I try to really respect that. When somebody's not just asking you for your opinion, I find it best to just kind of just let them vent, because sometimes that's all they're doing. They just want to vent. And so, but the people who are really curious, right, like legitimately, like they're like, hey, I've noticed you're losing weight, and this did start to happen to me. Like, you're losing weight, and so what are you doing? And so at that point, I would just tell them, like, well, here's what I'm doing. And it's still funny though to me, because I remember, like, I told my granny, like, she asked me, like, how did I lose weight? And I told her, I said, well, I learned I was eating too much. And she argued with me about it. I remember she was just like, you don't eat too much, and and it was such a sweet conversation. And she passed away a couple of years ago, but I remember that conversation really fondly. But those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. I love that quote, because it's true. Some people, it's like, it does not matter what you say. They'll like, no, that's not right. But anyway, I get some of my stubbornness from her, I think. So, Crypto Move says, thank you for your help and information. Currently in a hour 60 of a fast after a 72-hour fast. Looking to keep fasting on a rolling basis, average of 60 hours. Wow, that's pretty aggressive. I hope you do well with it. I hope you listen to your body, certainly, and always do it in a safe kind of way. Actually, that reminds me of, I just did an interview with Justin Dorff, and he did extended fasting. That was how he lost all the weight, and he has kept it off. So talk about like polar opposites in a way. Like, we have very, very similar philosophies on food. And actually, he does talk about like and thank you, M. Reed, for that New Year's wish and for the super thanks. That was very, very generous. Thank you. Wow. Anyway, so Justin Dorff, he was addicted to opiates. And so he was in rehab, and he at that time was like 184 pounds, I think. And so he ended up losing like 50 pounds, by fasting. Like, he would do extended fasting, and he was walking like 1 or 2 hours a day and just fasting. And that's how he lost the weight. But he did find that in maintenance, he was having a hard time, like, trying to like keep it off, like keeping up that pace. So just be aware that if you do things that are more aggressive that you really can't stick with, you do have to eventually figure that part out, which is why I prefer to go like very slow and steady and just make permanent kind of changes. And that's what he talked about too, that you have to learn how to permanently change your behavior around food. So yeah. Let's see. Jason Chisholm says, Merry Christmas from Texas. Merry Christmas from Central Florida. Let's see. Nana, so good to see you in here. The day has gone by fast. It really has. And this hour has gone by fast. It always goes by so quickly. Let's see. It's so funny that you write fiction books. Let's see, who else? Alina Pieces. Okay, so Alina, you've lost 50 pounds. Congratulations, by the way. Just in case no one has told you, congratulations. Anybody out there. No matter, like, when you look back, and I think we'll talk about this more next week, but like, the end of the year is a great time, especially after Christmas. Okay, like I understand. I'm surprised people showed up for this live stream. Actually, I was like, I had this list of questions prepared, like just frequently asked questions. I thought I'll just run through some of those if nobody shows up, because it's it's a few days before Christmas. Everybody's busy, so I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out some. But I was going somewhere with that. But oh right, so. But the end of the year, using that to your advantage. So it's a great time, like, even though you can, look back on an entire year at any time, like if you could be in the middle of the year, it's June or something, and you're like, okay, I'm going to look back 12 months and see kind of like what has my progress been. You can do it anytime, but there's something about this time of year where it just kind of lends itself to that kind of look back, because everybody else is kind of doing it. It's easier to do stuff when everybody else is doing it. It's easier to kind of take that time to set goals. I mean, everybody's going to be doing that in January, like, oh, got to do these resolutions, which, by the way, a long time ago, I decided I'm not doing New Year's resolutions. Like, this was probably actually in 2016, I heard the idea, like, maybe don't do resolutions anymore. Just set goals, like have goals and think about things you can really stick with and like be more systematic with it, and be realistic about it. And that has been helpful. Things like my 52 books a year goal that came out of like not doing resolutions anymore. Weight loss was another one. Like I decided like I'm going to just set a weight loss goal and I'm going to work towards that. But anyway, but like looking back over the year and look where you started. And this is where, if you've been tracking consistently, that's super helpful. Which, if you haven't been tracking consistently, maybe let that be motivation to help you to start tracking now, so that you can look back and see your progress. Because that is the thing, really, that creates motivation. Is if you can see where you started. And then knowing where you're wanting to go and then seeing your progress towards that goal, that is where motivation comes from. If you can't see the progress you're making, it's really easy to just lose motivation. It's like, why should I keep doing these things I'm doing? It feels like I'm not getting anywhere. But if you are keeping track of your progress, which I like to go back and reread all of my journal entries for the year at the end of the year, and look at my spreadsheet. I look over my numbers, make sure I look at my financial records, see like where did we start, where did we end, and all those things really have been useful because it helps me to like, as I'm moving forward in the new year, like what are some changes I need to make? Sometimes it's like I look back on the year, I'm like, man, we really didn't do, like we didn't do much as a family. Like, we didn't go places and do things. And then other times it's been like, oh man, we've like spent too much and that kind of thing. So it's like this, but it helps to kind of like look over the whole year. It's a little bit like, it's harder when you're just trying to focus on single days and stuff. But when you look over the course of the whole year, you can get kind of, you can see the patterns a little bit easier. So, all right. Well, it's basically been an hour. I think I got through all the questions. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys joining me for this, this fast. this intermittent fasting Q&A. Yeah, okay. Oh, I just, yeah, Crypto did say that his maintenance life will, or I'm not sure if you're male or female, but I think the picture, the avatar is male. So, yeah, so you're doing OMADs and then only doing like extended fast for the first 20 pounds. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that is, I would say, more sustainable. Like, I find OMAD to be very, very sustainable. Like, it works so well in my life. I have so much free time. Like, I've been learning how to do wood carving, and it's just nice. Like, when I don't have food as like kind of an option, then I find that I have so much more time to like read and write and do art. So it's just nice. Yep, it's true. Like, hunger is just a habit. And you really find that on extended fast, right? Because all this stuff we were talking about with intermittent fasting and the hunger cues and stuff like that. The thing about it, true hunger cues also go away. Like, it's not something you should ignore, right? Like, if you're, especially if you're at a good weight, you really shouldn't ignore those things. But eventually, like, if you're doing an extended fast, the hunger really subsides and kind of just goes away. It's a weird kind of thing, and you don't really feel hungry, but the energy levels, that was the thing for me. Like, I did 2 5-day fasts after I got down to my goal weight, and they were like, I think about a year apart, and I felt so tired, like so exhausted. I was like, I can't do like extended fast very often, just because of how, like, I mean, my back hurts really, really badly. Like, my lower back, it's just weird, like really weird stuff. I enjoy them. They're really good. I think there's some spiritual aspects to it that are good. And just mindset stuff is really good. And I should probably do one. I haven't made a plan for that yet. Oh, good. Solvents, you just got here, but yeah, you can rewatch the live stream. Hopefully it'll help you. I think the first question I did was all about like how to get started with intermittent fasting. So hopefully it'll help you. Hey, way to go, Nana Grace. She said she was looking at her tracking, and she's down 1.5 pounds. Very good. That is awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me. Have a Merry, Merry Christmas. I hope you have a good time and that you really enjoy yourself during this holiday season. And I'll see you guys next week.